back to Midco Sports tonight. It's time for one of our most entertaining segments, a sports debate we like to call Head to Head. How this works is we'll put two Midco Sports personalities against each other while I moderate. I'll ask up to 5 questions. Each person gets 30 seconds to convince me of their point. If they need to, each personality has a chance for rebuttal after both have spoken. Then I judge who's argued their point better and choose a winner. The first person to get to win 3 debates gets the W. We'll keep track of each person's records all season, and the best record gets to be crowned season champ. Today, we have David Brown and Carla Metz going head to head. We're very excited about this.
Inaugural debate. Let's do this.
To get this started, we're going to do a coin flip. Carla, you get to call it.
Okay.
This could be a disaster, so look out. Okay, ready?
Heads.
It's heads.
That was a flip?
It's heads. All right, Carla, do you want to go first or second?
I'm going to defer.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Little NFL strategy.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, it is football season. All right, starting with David. It is the beginning of the season, so there's quite a few FCS, FBS matchups. How much weight can we put on an early season FCS win over FBS wins?
Not trying to be a cop-out, but it really depends on the program itself. If you look, for instance, at your old Coyotes from 2010, they beat Minnesota, but the Coyotes were 4-7 that year. Minnesota wasn't very good. SDSU beat Kansas a couple of years ago, then lost in the first round of the playoffs. I thought SDSU's game against TCU last year, where they lost, was actually more impressive. Then you factor in North Dakota State. They've beaten a host of FBS schools, and obviously their success is unmatched. I think aside from the upper echelon SEC schools, not a whole lot of difference in talent between FBS and FCS. So how much weight do you put on it depends on the competition.
I'm sorry, I can't remember the last part of that sentence because you ran out of time.
I went a little over. It's fine.
All right, Carla, what do you think?
All right, well, I think it obviously just depends on what you do after that matchup. A good example of this is back in 2010, James Madison actually beat Virginia Tech 21-16. Virginia Tech went on to win 10 straight games, and then they beat Florida State for the ACC championship. James Madison, who got the big upset, went 6-5 that season and didn't even make the FCS playoffs, so it all depends on what you do after that matchup.
Wow.
And leaving time to spare.
Well, time to spare. Also, rebuttal, anyone? You guys had like the same point, so.
Basically, I think we kind of made similar points, but my argument simply goes into the fact that it depends on the FBS school. And like you mentioned, with Virginia Tech and things like that, I don't know if it necessarily indicates how an FCS team is going to do the rest of the season, but if you have a good FBS competitor, that may be a more determining factor than if you actually beat them or not.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I also think just with the argument, I'm always going to say that every game matters. It doesn't matter who you play. If your team starts to view every game differently in a different way, then you're not going to end up with a championship caliber team.
You guys, I'm going to have to go with Carla on this one.
Man.
Oh my goodness, a strong start. All right, official score pad here. Carla's pink, David's blue. All right, Carla, you're up 1-0. Great start right out of the gates. Next, we're going to talk Augie football. You both cover the NSIC, cover Augie. So after losing their top 3 quarterback options from a year ago, obviously not a great situation to have, how much does the quarterback position factor into Augie's success this year? Carla, we'll start with you.
All right. Well, obviously the quarterback position is always going to carry a lot of weight no matter what team you're talking to. But when you're talking to the Augustana football team this year, it's a completely different identity. And I think a really important part, this is going to sound strange, but some of the guys actually feel a little bit less weight that Trey Hyde is going to be not going to be leading their team this season, because they've got guys that want to step up and prove that they can carry their program's success. So no, they might not have the high caliber quarterback that they did last year, but they've got guys that are gritty and hardworking, and sometimes that carries more weight than talent.
All right, right at the buzzer. David, what do you think?
Carla has a point with that stuff, but however, if you look at Ryan Rubley, who's the presumed starter, he has 11 career passes. When you lose Trey Hyde and Charlie Hayes and Matt Heller, Triple H, you're going to basically lose a third of your points as well. Now, the defense does return 10 of 11 starters, but they were last in the conference in interceptions with only 6 on the year. Considering how many spread offenses there are in the NSIC, the defense can only carry them so far. Eventually, you're going to have to fight fire with fire. So until Ryan Rubley proves that he can match those spread offenses, Augustana's offense is going to look a lot different.
All right, rebuttals, anyone? Ooh.
What do you got to say?
I mean, just to my point that quarterbacks, I mean, yeah, it's going to play a weight, but it's a totally different identity. The Vikings have 10 defensive starters back, so their defense is going to take over this season, and they're not going to be offensive heavy. It's going to be all about the defense.
But again, they're last in the conference in interceptions from a year ago, so even though they have experience, they don't have a lot of wherewithal in the secondary, so Ryan Rubley will eventually have to prove his point on offense.
It's getting heated. All right. You know what? I'm going to have to go with David on that one. The 11 career passes. I mean, not to say anything against Ryan Rubley, but coming into the year with a stat like that, you definitely have to prove yourself. So congratulations, David. Tied it up. All right. All tied up 1-1. Now we're going to take it over to the national scene. Obviously a huge event this weekend, the Mayweather-McGregor fight. Hot topic, this is one of my favorite questions. Was the fight called too early? David, what do you think?
Of course it was called too early. McGregor wasn't even knocked down. It might have lasted only 15, 30 more seconds, but you got to give a guy a chance to at least get back up. He hadn't thrown a punch in a minute, but still, he was wobbling. As he said in the post-fight interview, wobbly doesn't necessarily mean tired, so wait till he's knocked down before calling the fight. Either way, the fact that he lasted that long proved how great of a fight it is. And again, you don't want the ref to decide things too much. Even though Floyd probably would have won anyway, I still would have liked to see someone knocked down rather than calling it a little bit early.
All right, good points. Carla, what do you think?
Well, of course, you can always argue that, yeah, it could have lasted a little bit longer, but McGregor was tired. We knew he was going to fall down. And as far as Mayweather's stamina goes, through 10 rounds, he looked like he had just been back in from a brisk jog. So he was going to go all the way no matter what. We knew that the inevitable was coming. As far as McGregor, he's going to argue that it could have gone longer, but that's because he's used to the MMA where they don't hit with 8-ounce gloves or 10-ounce gloves. They hit with fists and elbows, so he's used to much worse conditions.
But it's really hard to determine how much longer that fight would have lasted. I agree with you that Mayweather's stamina probably would have prevailed in the end. But again, McGregor didn't get knocked down. I would have liked to have seen him at least get knocked down, have it be a true knockout, not a technical knockout.
And I think he would have liked to get knocked down as well. I mean, that's what he's used to, the MMA. But at the end of the day, the fight was already over, for me at least, watching it.
Ooh, that's tough. Well, he did say, Conor McGregor did say, "Let the man put me down." And I was going to try that in an Irish accent, but I backed up in a second.
You want to try it?
Nope.
Okay.
All right, David, I think that one goes to you.
Coming back.
I agree that I feel like Mayweather would have won it in the end, you know, if they went the full 12 rounds, but I feel like the fight shouldn't have stopped there. David, you're up 2-1.
All right, let's do this.
Got to come for you.
Oh, man, this is the first time in a while we need to pass 3 questions. Okay. This one goes to Carla. Hypothetically, you have the first pick in the first round for our very cool Midco SN fantasy football draft. Who do you take and why?
This is easy for me. All the articles out there talk about David Johnson or Levon Bell being the 1 and 2 guys that you need to draft. For me, it's David Johnson all the way. Of course, he's an FCS guy, so my argument could end there. But he had over 1,200 yards on the ground last year, 16 touchdowns. He also had 80 receptions for 876 yards. This guy can do it all. He's an FCS guy, and I just think I had actually had the number 2 pick last season in the office draft and took David Johnson first round, so not a lot would change for me.
Ooh, right at the buzzer. All right, David, what do you think?
David Johnson is a very good pick, but if you're in a PPR league, you have to go Antonio Brown. I know it's kind of in vogue to do wide receivers, but the reason you pick Antonio Brown is this. He's the only NFL player in the past 3 seasons to have at least 100 catches and 10 touchdowns. If you're in a PPR league that counts points per reception, he's a vital part of that offense. With Le'Veon Bell, who's held out during training camp, you don't know how integral a part of the offense he's going to be when he comes back. They get Martavis Bryant back from a 1-year suspension at wide receiver, but again, he needs to get reintroduced to that offense as well. Antonio Brown is the best receiver. David Johnson's good, but there are other backs.
Ooh, rebuttals? Carla?
David Johnson proved himself last year, I think, as far as running back. So, like I said, he's an FCS guy. He's going to work harder than some of those FBS guys, I think, on just as far as NFL goes. So, I'd stick with David Johnson.
And I'm not disagreeing with you. David Johnson's a fantastic pick. Just to me, he's not number 1 overall. There's still a depth at running back. With Antonio Brown, I think there isn't as much depth at elite wide receiver, so you take him when you can get him.
All right, good points on both sides. If the viewers don't know, I am actually the fantasy football expert in the office.
Weren't you in last year?
I took last place last year. But, you know, I'm making a comeback this year, And speaking of comebacks, Carla Metz.
Oh.
You won that round. We are all tied up.
Going the distance.
We're going the distance. We're not stopping the fight early. All right, question 5. This is for all the marbles, you guys. Will the Vikings offensive line give Sam Bradford enough protection to throw deep this year?
Well, based on what we saw in the preseason, absolutely not. I know they've tried to revamp that offense, and I'm a Vikings fan, by the way, so this pains me to say. They tried signing Riley Reef, the Parkson, South Dakota native, in the offseason, but he's been hurt most of training camp at left tackle. Mike Remmers, who they got from Carolina at right tackle, has been just an absolute disaster. Actually, Dalvin Cook might be better at chipping off blitzers than anyone on the offensive line. Until they can prove otherwise, I just don't trust this offensive line to keep Sam Bradford upright. He's going to be on skates all season. I hope I'm wrong, but the depth isn't there, and the team play isn't there as well.
The pain of a Vikings fan for
I know.
David Brown. But you're a good sport about it. All right, Carla, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, the Minnesota Vikings are a lot like the Atlanta Falcons. I don't keep up with them because it's just better for my health because they're constantly letting their fan bases down. But as bad as the offensive line was last year, Sam Bradford still ended up having one of his most efficient seasons in the NFL, which still, by the way, wasn't that great. So I just think at the offensive line even takes one step up. You've got to remember they're starting from the bottom, kind of the Drake analogy. But yeah, I mean, they're starting from the bottom. They're only going to take one step up. It's not going to get much better. The only hope that they have for their passing game is in their skill guys.
Rebuttals?
You made my point for me. They're taking incremental steps up, but it's not going to be there. They haven't proved it this preseason with their new additions, so I can't say for certain that the offensive line is going to keep Sam upright.
Yeah, I mean, here's my question at the end of the day. Can Sam Bradford be the quarterback that the Minnesota Vikings need him to be when everybody still wants Teddy Bridgewater back? I mean,
Including
you can't.
me.
Yeah, you can't tell me that mentality doesn't trickle down into the locker room.
Oh, no. I have all the power here. Okay. You know what?
Yeah, you do.
And I'm a Packers fan, so I just want everyone to lose right now. But I'm going to have to go with David Brown on that one. I am so
Made me
sorry.
sweat.
I'm so sorry, Carla.
That's
David,
all right.
according to the official score pad, you have won 3-2. So thanks for playing, guys.
Awesome.
Great discussion.
Worthy competition.
Yes.
All right, when we
Rematch
come
later.
back, find out what some area athletes are saying in 140 characters or less. Athlete tweets are up next. Stay right here.
Midco Sports Tonight, presented by Avera.